Oh, kaboom! Robert Height blows one up. Tim Wilkerson goes 395 at 308 miles an hour. Robert goes 712 at 51. But that red, white, and blue Auto Cup Chevrolet, about 250 feet or so, went kaboom. Robert climbing out of the top.
Robert Height has won the race, but his car has exploded and he is in the wall. Take a look at this one more time. Our Papa John's replay slow motion style.
And you could see the raw fuel that was coming out of the right bank, right side of the screen for us. And that was the beginning of the problem. Look at all the fluid under, and he's actually steering the car. This is sheer instinct for a driver. The wheels were actually continuing to go straight. So Robert had no idea where he was at. However, he could recall where he was last. So instinctively, he was still driving this car. And only good drivers with a lot of experience can do that, because he had fire in his face. He had a lot of body parts. I'm sure there was some engine parts. Fortunately, most of them are contained by a lot of the straps and restraints.
Whoa! John goes sideways and Tommy launches the body. Kaboom! Body comes from rest in the grass alongside the track. John Force's car knocked the tire loose, kicked sideways, went across the center line, and Tommy's car went bang. We both got him stopped down there at the far end of the racetrack after a wild side-by-side run. Tommy Johnson climbing out of his car.
Oh, hold on. Thank goodness it comes to a stop finally. As John Force exploded a car, that put him in the path of Johnny Lindberg. And from that moment forward and for a long time, simply hold on tight. Good to see some arms flailing underneath the parachute that looks to be shrouded over the top of Johnny Lindberg. Johnny climbs out. Meanwhile, they're attending to John Force right now. Tony Schumacher, I don't know how many times we've held our breath with you in these moments. Memphis comes to mind.
Yeah, that was uncomfortable. This was a big explosion. I couldn't tell if he had any control after it blew off the ground, because that was a big move. It come across, and when it hit Lindbergh's car, when the parachutes get tangled up, man, they're just wrapped up. You got all these monsters with no bodies on them now, just pulling each other around with absolutely no control. But just want to see some movement from Johnny here.
No reason for any speculation. We're going to step away, let the men and women of the NHRA Safety Safari, our first responders, do their due diligence. When we come back, we will update the conditions of both John Force and Johnny Lindberg following a very scary funny car incident round 2 in Arizona. Conscious and alert, the NHRA Safety Safari did take a lengthy amount of time making sure we got the 16-time champ out. He's being transported for observation to a local hospital. Here is why that is. John Force right side, big explosion. And from there, Tony Pedregon just got to ride this one out.
Well, John's hanging on. He's collected Johnny Lindberg, grabbed a hold of his parachutes, and John's getting really beat around. Now, there are a lot of safety measures in that chassis. There's a form-fitted seat, but the damage starts early. Take a look at that raw fuel coming out of the pipe right at the step. A second one went out. Now, what John did in the seat was not anything that any other driver wouldn't have done. Take a look at this raw fuel. On the other side, it was a V8 that was transformed into a V6. Now, that puts a lot of stress internally on the parts. Now, what happened was when the engine blew up, the concussion was so big that it turns the car and repositions it, and that is the reason that it goes into Johnny Lindberg's lane.
Courtney very concerned, Brittany as well. The top end, they were there as the NHRA Safety Safari was extricating John. Don Schumacher, a lot of concern. After all, he is Funny Car's winningest guy, and he's the reason the category is what it is today.
Whoa! Larry crashes hard right at the finish line. Both cars were kind of hunting towards the center. You can see that Doug's car was moving over there, and Larry's car crashed hard, comes to a stop down in the shutdown area. Safety Safari already rolling on the scene. We'll wait until we get word from the top end. Just an incredible incident here at Gainesville in the third qualifying session at Auto Plus Raceway. We're talking about a car was going close to 300 miles an hour down there, and impossible to tell from this angle exactly what went wrong, but the car got airborne, flying down the racetrack, and has come to a stop up against the concrete wall down there. And we will wait until we hear from the professionals.
Neither driver's going in right away. There goes Jack. John's right behind.
Oh, what a race! But John Force gets a big explosion. Jack Beckman goes on. He wins back-to-back. And John Force is on fire as he rolls to a stop.
Car's still burning. John in there can't see where he's going, just trying to get this thing stopped. You see the roof hatch come up. I'm sure he's got the fire bottles on and got the fuel shut off and getting out of that hot race car right now.
Well, John is out of the race car. You see the concern of all of his family back at the line. John holding the top up so they can get in there and minimize the damage from that engine explosion.
Well, I tell you what, that car was flying before it exploded. Jack Beckman had the advantage off the starting line, but boy, John run some very good early numbers before that thing erupted. Was probably, had it made it to the finish line, was going to drive around Jack Beckman, but the key is you got to go to the finish line.
You know, Mike, that was exactly my thinking until I saw the flash and realized that John Force was in trouble. Boy, what a day for this whole team. Go back and take a look at that run. Keep an eye on John Force.
You take a look at Jack had 300ths of a second advantage off the starting line, but by half track, and John had already blown up at half track, and he was already made up 500ths of that run. You saw the sparks fly out of the exhaust. I don't know if it just pitched an intake valve or something and caused all those sparks to go out and then just blew the engine up, which we've seen that happen numerous times in these fuel engines. It drops an intake valve. Saw a little bit of a fire underneath at first, but boy, a big flame there. And that thing was really charging too. Tough break, but give credit to Jack Beckman and that team. They had a good race car all weekend.
And credit to John Forrest. He got this thing back under control and drove it to a stop, climbed out of the car, and then assisted.
Last year at Englishtown, Kenny Bernstein won in the Budweiser King. In the first round today, son Brandon went for the ride of his life. The car got out of control, hit the wall hard. Brandon up and over, and from that moment on, everyone was holding their breath. Father Kenny didn't even wait for the truck. He went bolting down the quarter mile to see how son Brandon was. The looks of concern because he was complaining of lower back pain. The jaws of life were brought in to extricate 30-year-old Brandon Bernstein, a position his father really had been in several times himself, but never this way, where he saw his son on a backboard being placed into an ambulance. Let's go back and take another look, and you'll see exactly why he had such tremendous impact.
Well, Marty, you're going to see right here, he smoked the tires, got a little bit too sideways, and then overcorrected. When he lifted, the tires kind of hooked, actually got the car airborne, and then took a hard hit into the wall from the bottom side of that car. And probably the reason he's complaining of the lower back pain is, remember, they're on a carbon fiber seat. There's not any padding whatsoever. It's just a suit. So I'm sure all the impact happened on that on his lower back. Now watch again. You're going to see him get out throttle, get back on. The problem was it was too far sideways when he got back on it and overcorrected, which just sent that car launching into the wall. Pretty hard impact. When I first saw it, I thought it was okay, just kind of rolled up on the wall. But then when we saw it on replay, it went into it very, very hard, and that was that's a tough hit right there.
You have to remember, these cars accelerate to 100 miles an hour in the first 60 feet. And even when you haze the tires like this, he is getting up over 125 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah, easily. I mean, when they're smoking the tires, I mean, you can run the other end smoking the tires at well over 250 miles an hour, 240 miles an hour is not a problem. So it was very easily could have been achieved of a speed of well over 100 miles per hour when he impacted that wall.
He was loaded into the ambulance, taken to Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in nearby New Brunswick, New Jersey. And this is what was left of the top fuel machine of Brandon Bernstein. when Bill caught up with the medical services department.
Twist of the screw for the idle adjustment. The signal to the driver. Leah racing for her points light. Tony just racing for fun. Allen Trophy. Leah's car blows the whole body off of it at the top end of the racetrack. That thing just disintegrated. Tony Schumacher got the win, but that was the craziest thing I've seen. It's like the whole front of the car just disintegrated down there. Leah's car has come to a stop, and she is already opening the capsule, and Leah Pruitt climbs out of what's left of that Don Schumacher race car. Holy smokes. That thing, she hit the gas, it washed out, it moved towards the center line. Those two were glued together. They were 0.04 apart at 330. And then stuff started flying. Looking at the video up on the Sunoco Vision, the front half of the car is missing. And it came to a stop. Leah unbuckled and climbed out. That thing broke in the middle. As you watch it up there on a replay, we've seen that a couple of times, but not for a number of years. The chassis bowed up in the middle. And then when it broke, it arched up and flew away. Up close and personal. Saw Larry Dixon do that a few years ago out in Gainesville, and that is a scary moment. But the one thing that you can absolutely see crystal clear, the capsule stayed intact. And after a wild flight, and a hard landing, parachute certainly helped slow the car down.
A lot of credit to NHRA and to the Knapp family for all of that.
Alexis DeJoria on the left lane, Freddie Tigas on the right. The final pair, round number 2, Alcohol Funny Car.
Let's see if she can go 554 like everybody else in this round.
Oh, 555, darn close. Pop goes boom. Look out. Here we go again. Oh. Very scary moment. Hold on tight. Quickest, the fastest pass of Alexis' career. Through both catch nets. Safety Safari on scene. Crew very much concerned.
Yeah, she was going at a brisk pace down there through those. We saw the chutes just pull off the back of the race car, and it's unbelievable that 2 cars in a row could have problems down there at the end of the racetrack.
Hey, we can let our breaths out. Look who they're pulling out of the top of that car. Alexis is out of the car. That's the good news.
Yep, there she is.
Standing up. You think Marty was upset. She's even more upset.
Walking away. Isn't that amazing that that car can go through there? And again, you touched on the Scott Coletta tragedy last year, what it did there for Marty Nostein. Even more severe here. The crowd already knows that she is out of the car, talking to the medics down there. Frustrated, obviously, because she hurt the car. She ran her best number ever, won the round. And watch this again. The parachute just pull right off the back of this race car when she deploys them. There they are full, and right now, I mean, they just pulled right off the back. You hardly ever see that happen. And she is trying to get this thing stopped down there, and again going into the sand and that gravel. I do believe at a higher rate of speed than Marty was, trying to scrub the speed to see the tires smoking behind her. She's going to hit that first one and go right through it and right into the second net.
Unbelievable. Thought possibly heard a little pop down there. Don't know if she was sliding in her own oil. Look at that. Let's check in down at the far end where Lauren is caught up with Alexis. We're all very relieved, Lauren.
No, you're okay, but what was going through your mind when you saw yourself just careening towards the sand trap?
I'm not going to stop. So I just braced myself. I mean, you know, what can I do?
I saw your reaction when you just saw your car.
Well, you're just along for the ride. I mean, I've been in the sand before, but hell, I've never crashed before. Sorry about my language.
Was it just a non-functioning of the chutes, or did the car blow, or?
No. I mean, it just wasn't stopping. You know, I pulled my chutes, had that brake. I mean, I was holding on that brake tight, man, and just here it comes, fast as hell.
Well, I'm sure you're disappointed, but we're glad you're okay.
And a 50, what was it? A 54?
55.
5:55, and everybody.
55,
yeah.
my best run ever. And look at her.
All right, well, feel better, and we hope your baby gets better too.
Unbelievable. Look at that. That whole front end of that car is bent up at a 90-degree angle.
And the important thing to note is all of the safety equipment on the race car, on the track, the equipment the Nat family put in here that we saw demonstrated earlier on Marty Nostein's car was even more.
Oh, hold on, Alexis. She got the wall. John Force has got the ET time slip at 3.936 seconds. Alexis a little tardy, and then the car took a left-hand turn and smacked that retaining wall. There are the numbers. You see the top come out. Good to see Alexis pop out. That was a hard hit, Tony. You've hit the wall like that a couple of times. They're not soft.
Well, they never are, and the earlier in the run that it happens, the less control. It's such a surprise, but it did appear that her car moved to the right. So the first thing you're going to look at is if there was any fluid, if there was any oil leaking coming off of that car. A lot of times it can break an axle. When it breaks an axle, it will turn much harder than it did.
So a couple of Toyotas. Somebody's got to race Hulk Hagan. Alexis left side, JR Todd right. JR has problems. He pedals it a couple of times. Alexis, kaboom! Blows the body off of it in the shutdown area. Gets over up against the concrete. And wins. 3.91, 322 miles an hour. You saw that thing had some really hot pipes as it was closing in on the finish line. And then it went kablooey. Shattered that Toyota body. The car stayed on its wheels, even though it was definitely a wild ride down there, bouncing back and forth and getting up against the wall before ultimately coming to a stop. Alexis climbed out of the car under her own power. I would very much not like to have to say that anymore today. Just kaboom down there at the finish line. You can see her fighting for control of the thing. One of the things about funny cars, because all the downforce comes from the rear deck, when it blows the body off of it, there is absolutely nothing to keep those giant Goodyear tires. Smoke for Chad Head. 397 for Alexis DeJoria. Shoot a little bit late on the Tequila Toyota. Finally it blossoms. She has got a handful of brake trying to keep that thing out of the sand. And no, it got dirty at the top end. The Tequila Patron Toyota goes to the beach. Alexis in the sand trap, top end. It saw a little bit late on that parachute. When the one blossomed, she was fighting everything she could do to get that thing to stop, but she just couldn't quite get her stopped in time.
Crew chief that has tuned 2 drivers to the first 3-second pass. Matt Hagan, the first ever, and then Alexis just 2 weeks ago in Pomona.
You know much about Jeff Arendt's crew chief, Jim Dunn?
I've worked with him for a while. Good race.
Oh, that was a great race.
Good
Big
race.
Jim Dunn and Jeff kept that team honest. No parachutes for Alexis. Big giant runoff here, though. It goes out into the desert.
A lot of real estate here. She should be all right.
The road goes almost to Tucson. She gets it stopped. 4:06.5 for that man. Needed just about every 10th of a second because Jeff Arendt was right there with a 4:10.
And how about Jeff Arendt? I mean,
because during the second round of Funny Car, there was a serious accident that involved Kenny Bernstein and John Force. John Force over there on the right side, Mike Dunn.
You're going to see Kenny Bernstein in a cross over the center line, send some parts and pieces over there. But what happens was a tire went down on John Force's car, it appears, and when he pulled the parachutes, it just ripped the back half of that chassis off. He is over on the right side of the wall. You see the remainder of the car, the front half of it, sliding down the guard wall in the right-hand lane before it comes to a stop in the sand trap. Take another look at it. You're going to see Kenny's is ahead at this point, but it drifts over, hits the blocks. And what happens when the chutes come out right there, you're going to see the chassis where John is off to the left. The other part of the chassis slides over into Kenny's lane. You see John right there as it came to a hard stop against the wall. Very frightening incident at that point.
And we'll look at it one more time as Kenny Bernstein drifts toward the center line, catches the blocks, and then all of a sudden it begins to disintegrate.
Right there, that's John right there. He just pulls the back of that chassis right off. The front part of the chassis goes into Kenny, drives both of them into the wall, and then the bodies are shedded. At that point, Kenny see with both chutes out, he's getting that thing back under control safely. The rest of John's car sliding, like we said, against the wall, and then the part where John is parked over into that left-hand wall.
Kenny Bernstein was shaken up, but okay. And as of 6 o'clock local time, we have an update on John's condition. He will go into surgery tonight at Baylor Hospital. He has a compound fracture of his left ankle. This comes from the team. His right knee has an abrasion all the way down to the bone, and therefore some possible tendon damage. John's left wrist is dislocated and broken, and he has abrasions and broken fingers on his right hand. They did give John Force a CAT scan, and it has come back negative. That's the latest on this situation.